Awesome. Okay, let's move on now to our first panel of the day, which is going to take place on Animal Crossing. The attendees are, including myself, it's hosted by Alice Lloyd George, the noted investor. Rogue is her investment firm, and she is going to be hosting a panel on science fiction representations of virtual beings, and it'll go from there with myself, Ardy Robertson of The Verge, the publication, and Lucas Matney of TechCrunch. And yeah, I think this is kind of, for us, this is a bit of an homage to what Gary Whitta has been doing on Animal Crossing called Animal Talking, which is a pretty crazy virtual beings example where his avatar does a kind of talk show with avatars of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, other folks, like it's kind of like a Jimmy Kimmel, but in Animal Crossing with cameras and lights, and so cool. So we thought we'd do a little homage to that here with this panel. All right, let's take it away.
Welcome everyone to my island, Valinor. It's great to see you all today for the Virtual Being Summit.
Lucas is looking very excited right now.
Hey. We have 4 of us here, Edward Saatchi, Lucas Matney, and Addy Robertson. And exciting to talk to you all about all things virtual beings. So let's head on up to the house, unless you want to see anything before we get started.
It's a beautiful island, Alice.
Thank
Super
you.
Cool.
Yeah, it seems to be winter here. I'm sorry, it's a bit chilly. People have been sneezing a lot, but Edward, you seem to have come in your underwear today.
Yeah, I may need to have a sweater instead. I'm a little embarrassed.
He's in flip-flops and a luau skirt.
This is definitely not. I was promised a very summery situation here. I thought it was going to be like lying out in the sun.
Like
and
winter blizzard.
Now I can just see my breath because it's so cold.
Okay. Yeah, it's chilly. But we'll
Lucas
warm
did
up
well with his
inside.
hat. Lucas is on.
Exactly. Dress for the weather. California boy.
Yeah.
All right, should we go in?
Great. This is the lobby. I'll wait for you guys, and I'll just do a little lap around my my moon here. I wonder if we could all take a group shot photo. You know?
Yeah, how does that work?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
Well, we could do that upstairs, yeah. Maybe in the panel room. Okay, let's pop upstairs and take a pic.
Okay.
Excellent.
Oh my God.
Welcome. There's no real seating order here, so wherever you like.
I'm spicing things up.
I'm sorry about the desk share. I ran out of velvet stools. But it is what it is, I guess. So glad to have you all here. Let me see if I can take a quick snapshot. Ooh, first some delight.
How do I do this delight thing?
I don't know if you'll be able to do it if you haven't invested some time into the game, where they don't just get everything.
I've been hearing this a lot.
But as
earlier,
you can
Lucas
probably
was mocking me for not knowing what a ladder is.
I think I'm able to, change the lighting here for the photo. There's like lots of different, filters.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, bless you.
That,
sorry about
that
the
one is really cool.
Sorry, it's cold. You can add the date. That date is wrong for some reason. Oh, that's because I've been time traveling. Anyhow, say cheese. Ooh, cheese. Excellent. Ooh, my eyes were closed. I'll do one more. Okay. Thanks. Okay, great. Cool. Well, don't want to, waste any more time. I'd love to get into all things virtual beings. Why don't we just kick off with everyone introducing themselves? Mr. Luau, if you want to go first on the right. feel free.
Sure, I'm Edward Saatchi with Fable and the Summit.
I am Lucas Matney, and I am a reporter at TechCrunch.
And I'm Addie Robertson, reporter at The Verge.
Cool. I'm Alice Lloyd-George, partner at Rogue VC. I'm thrilled to have you all here today. So it sounds like some of you have quite a lot of familiarity with Animal Crossing already. It sounds like, Lucas, you played quite a bit. Is that right?
Yeah, I've it's funny. I played the first game, like, it must have been like 15 or 16 years ago, and I remember I was just like obsessed with it. And I also remember, like, I think the next game may have come out for the Nintendo DS, and I was like super psyched for that. And I remember, like, am I still going to be into Animal Crossing when I'm like, 25 and 30? And turns out that just I have been. You don't grow up nearly as much as you think you will when it comes to, like, just fun games.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that it's back for, second. Is this the second wind or third wind? The iteration of Animal Crossing, it just keeps.
Oh, this is like the fifth or sixth game in the series. This is like, I think this might be one of Nintendo's, like, I think this is like, it seems goofy, but this is like definitely making the studio like close to $1 billion. I feel like this is like a massive. I think it was the fastest selling digital title ever.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you actually have friends on Animal Crossing that you spend time with? Not to shame you. Yeah, I mean,
do you have friends?
My tone of voice. The
question. The question everyone hates online. No, I mean, I've visited a few friends' islands, but mostly it's their transactional relationships to buy turnips on their island and sell them for hire. So it's all a capitalistic gains. No social needs involved.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
I do have a WhatsApp group of people that are frequently online in Animal Crossing, and we share like various hacks and tricks and like memes there. So, so I do have a gang.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm in a messenger group, and it's one of my friends who lives in Tokyo, and all of her friends are just messaging turnip prices and then like responding in Japanese, and I'm always just like, hello, your friend from California always has bad turnip prices.
Yeah. I think one of the things we were interested in talking about today, since you're also well versed in sci-fi, is how, when you're thinking about virtual beings, how what you've read or been exposed to in film or TV informs how you think about these sort of early metaverse environments and, avatar type experiences. If any of you have thoughts on that.
I mean, if we're talking about actual independent virtual beings, like not just avatars, but sort of characters who can interact with you, who are intelligent, I think science fiction basically has decided that creating AIs, it's like everything that you are afraid your children might be, but just amplified to a massive degree. So either you're going to try to live through your children and treat them as subservient, or they're going to get mad at you and try to kill you.
That's interesting.
Right. So you're saying it's largely dystopian, a lot of the sci-fi portrayals.
A lot of it's either dystopian or it's kind of idealized in a way that feels sort of creepy, like that you have this personal servant or this thing that you possess that is still kind of a person.
What's interesting, I've just, I hadn't remembered it as we were prepping for this panel, but, David in the Prometheus and Alien Covenant movies is, I guess, part of his obsession with becoming a creator himself, and becoming a dad, I guess. It's interesting as we've been thinking about Lucy, like trying to give her the ability to be an artist or to create, and I actually see that in quite a lot of the virtual beings that I see, like a desire for the creators to create artists. So it's kind of create creative people. But I hadn't thought of that parental relationship, but it actually is true. I mean, I guess Fable is working on a child with Lucy that we all have parental feelings towards. That's kind of that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
I actually think it's super, like, the virtual sort of idols and influencers we have in real life also, they're kind of way cooler and more interesting than a lot of the ones that are in fiction. Like, this has been kind of a running trope that someone will try to create the perfect pop star, but they tend to be these kind of very sterile, middle of the road, focus grouped beings. And actually, it turns out you get like Michaela, who is kind of strange and interesting.
That is, yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah, I think, yeah, a lot of the sci-fi things about that are more about like, oh, you could never create an artist that anyone would find interesting, or a singer that anyone would find interesting. It's too artificial. And actually they kind of have. I mean, she's very specific, and a work of art herself, but also like a legitimate artist that I listen to her music on Spotify. Yeah, that is super interesting. What about you, Lucas? Are you a Ready Player One figure, or what are your ones? What are your sci-fi books or movies that connect to VBs for you?
Well, I mean, maybe not on that note as much. I guess I just got this device. Well, actually, I think it's embargoed, so actually I can't mention it. But so never mind on that.
That is such a reporter humble brag.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Never mind. It's really crazy, and it's embargoed for 10 years from now. No. Yeah. Let me think about that. Like, I don't know. I think I was actually messaging you, Edward, when I was reading that Ted Chiang book, Exhalation, about I forget what that short story was called.
Life cycle of software objects.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, as soon as I finished that, I was thinking about, a lot of the conversations we've had just in terms of like the emotional connection that can develop over time, even if some things are just like completely, even if they, like, they start off like in a really rudimentary fashion, like just the experience of growing alongside like the intelligence, like at least theoretically, like it can really foster a bond. And I think that's kind of an interesting scope into it, especially just because it seems like anything that people are going to have like a bond with is naturally going to be pretty rudimentary right now, unless it's, one of these text-based AI engines like we were talking about yesterday. So that's kind of fascinating. And I guess it's like kind of like how that relationship scales. And I guess you don't really see that too much with the existing like quote unquote AI assistants, because they're so transactional. So no one has a personal relationship with Siri, although
Except
like
that some people, like kids, apparently do.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, people like ask questions, and I mean, I ask Siri how the weather is every morning, and Siri might actually answer. Okay, maybe not. So it's interesting.
I mean, I personally, as a Star Wars fanatic, I'll just say that I'm on the sort of robot side. R2-D2 is the ultimate hero of all the movies. If you watch them all through 1 through 9 and don't suffer too much through the 3 trilogies. But I think it's unusual, like to Addie's point, to see that portrayal. Like they're so often, they're very rarely a hero like that, or on the good side. It's just a lot of fear. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's interesting as Edward, you're a founder in the space, to try and like steer what you're doing and also manage like the public kind of imagination or discussion around it. Is that something that you have to think about?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that we've been thinking about recently in terms of new characters, because Lucy is a kid, so you know, in the West, or in most countries, she's not going to have a job. But we do want adult characters who could have careers and jobs. And I think that to me is so important because they need to have a reality and have a work-life balance that you can empathize with. But then I look at Samsung Neon at CES, who talked about virtual beings who had very specific looks and really felt real, also had careers. And there was an idea that they talked about of renting the virtual being to be your customer support person, or to be your cook, or to be these different things. You'd rent them over time. And for me, that connects to Detroit Become Human, where it's a video game where there's just 70% unemployment because AI has gotten so strong, and it creates a massively unpleasant thing. So even I am like just thinking now out loud, like, gosh, if we're giving our virtual being, if Fable is giving our virtual beings jobs and careers for pretty vital artistic purposes, they need to have that. But how is that going to connect to real people? And it's hard to, when we think about Michaela, it's hard to kind of, because it's so new and quite, I think, brilliant. It's hard to think, oh, but actually, legitimately there's a sponsorship deal. It's either going to Michaela or it's going to a real person. And, there are a limited number of sponsorship deals. The more famous she becomes, the more sponsorship deals she has, the more roles she has. She, there's something to that I think is kind of inescapable, that a lot of artists who want to create characters that feel real have to give their characters jobs. And eventually that's going to take jobs, or even already it's taking jobs from real people. So I think how we manage that is, I have no idea, but it is already happening. I mean, she's winning contracts that someone else would have won if she didn't exist, a real person.
I think so much of this is to be really simplistic, there's no reason we should all have to work in the future. In the future, robots are going to do all our jobs, and the idea of having a traditional job will be a quaint affectation, like they're medieval villagers or something.
I mean, I would really be hiring people to decorate my house in Animal Crossing so it looks a little better than it does now. So those kinds of jobs, like, I don't know, the new jobs, I think there'll be a lot of them, but
or future jobs are just incredibly weird.
Animal Crossing house designer will still be on the list, I think.
It's the only way. Yeah, you see that all the time on that 5 jobs
stays.
that can't be automated. Like, that's always in the top.
That's why I'm investing all of my time in Animal Crossing right now. My current job, the AI is going to take over, but Animal Crossing, that will stay.
Yeah, I did want to invite there's all these designers, who share their QR codes on Instagram for outfits and fashion in Animal Crossing. There's a lot of cool DIY stuff. I tried to get them to join for the summit. They're so swamped with requests. Like, I've been requesting Billie Eilish outfits forever. I noticed that Addie's wearing a shirt that looks like she might have made it. I don't know if you can tell us about the process of making that.
Yeah, so I figured that I wasn't going to play Animal Crossing long enough to actually get anything really cool, but I could open up the canvas. And so that's what a geodesic dome looks like to me. I can't actually draw at all, so it's more or less like being a kid at summer camp and trying to make something out of puffy paint.
Trying to zoom in on you, it's a little tricky here, but it looks cool.
It's fun. I turned out to kind of like it.
Yeah.
I'm curious what people think, and I think this is a good panel to ask about it in terms of gender. Blade Runner 2049 and her and Ex Machina are all created by men and have a theme of love, romantic, between a male and a kind of female robot. I don't want to ruin the ending of Blade Runner 2049 for people. So, but yeah, it seems like a really important question, and there's not great answers outside of what each company does and does it ethically. But I'm just curious what you guys think, because Sci-Fi certainly shows an Ex Machina, for example. It's like it's all in on the theme of the creator being deeply misogynistic, the character of Oscar Isaac, and exploiting it for misogynistic reasons, his ability to create, and that's a theme going on a lot. So I'm curious what you guys think about it as viewers or as people watching the industry as well.
Seems like it's like it all goes back to that old story of Pygmalion and is it Galatea, where he falls in love with the sculpture that he makes, and but like you were saying earlier, it's either that or it's child, right? Whenever you create something, you tend to have a bond to it. But in terms of being an avatar and how I feel like coming into these worlds, I will just say Animal Crossing is one of the only ones as a woman that I feel quite comfortable. Like I look like a kid in an oversized neon hoodie right now. And often in these worlds, you're really sexualized. Like a lot of the early VR experiences, I would just turn and look down at my body and be like, wow, my boobs are huge. And my top is really low. And I don't always want to do that. I'm an investor in Wave, and it's a virtual entertainment platform company. And one of the first things they did was have all the characters be, non-gendered. They would be space cats or robots or something, so everyone was they could express themselves a little bit, but it was gender neutral. And I found that very freeing in VR. I don't know about you, Addie, how you have experienced these things.
I mean, my first VR was stuff like Alt Space, where it was trying really hard to be extremely abstract. But it definitely has been an issue in video games in general, although I think it has gotten better. I think it's really interesting how companies have tried to deal with this with virtual assistants, where they've faced, on the one hand, they're trying to not fall into these gendered tropes, like Google Assistant is very explicitly not named with anything that could be gendered. But at the same time, they're also just having to deal with how their users interact with these people that they've created, and their users are often deeply sexist. So there are just all these stories about Siri having to code in answers to horrible things people will say to Siri. So there's an interesting shared responsibility and the kind of dual issue for female virtual beings.
Yeah, I think there were just a lot of raised eyebrows early on when it was just like Alexa and Siri and Google Assistant all had female voices, and there are studies that came out around that time, as they were all in their 1.0 period, where people were saying well, yes, we'll give options for male voices also, but people generally prefer female voices. And it was, that didn't necessarily make any of the conversations, any of the people skewering, that seemed kind of screwed up.
But Cortana is an incredibly weird example of that.
Yeah.
Cortana is also a very specific character from a video game.
Oh, right, yeah. What about Cortana?
I think everyone... Well, Cortana's been discontinued, right? Or not? I guess it's still...
I think it's become an enterprise assistant or something like that. Which is odd because she's the most gamey of all of them. With Fable, we have
a military product exclusively now.
With Fable, we have to decide whether a virtual being can kind of end a relationship, or how do they assert boundaries, or how do you do that? How do you say that it's unacceptable to be treated in this way, not just around sexism and misogyny, but around just generally being mean And yeah, I mean, there's sci-fi tropes of like the AI is created and is trained on humans and then becomes a monster because of all our darkest impulses, like with Tay, the Microsoft bot. And I think that's where art comes in, because, you know, it's kind of obvious, I think, with Lucy or with Michaela or with many of these other virtual beings that are creatively driven, that you're not going to change who they are. They exist. They have their own story, they have their own life, and that maybe gives a bit more confidence that they can hold their own, that they're not just trying to mimic you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also, you know, as you were saying about like Siri being trained to like answer all of these questions, like it's especially with Siri, it's just so odd because I feel like Apple has, you know, they're just such clear shortcomings with the actual like you know, answering like queries that Siri does, but like meanwhile they're programming all these answers to all these like distinctly political questions, or like just, you know, not even political, but just like very I don't know, seemingly like very fringe, like, you know, questions that are a little bit sexist or something, and it just, you know, you wonder why they're even programming these answers in the first place when like 30% of the answers I get from Siri are, sorry, I'll scour the web for that.
Hey,
So,
Lucas.
yeah.
Do you want to swap chairs with me for a sec?
Okay.
Cool. that was really easy. Okay. Just wanted to, I just realized now I can have us all in the middle of the frame. Yay.
Are
Not
we
to
taking a
disrupt
photo?
the conversation. Yeah, I'll keep taking photos.
I was really touched earlier this morning. AI Foundation did their presentation, and the AI of Biz Stone was talking about living on after he's gone, and you know, which is something you see in sci-fi quite a lot. But something that I hadn't thought of before that they talked about was that the AI could continue to learn after the person's gone, which is very strange to me, but does seem pretty logical and make sense that you know, I could react to an event 200 years from now, whatever the AI approximation of me is, the best that it is, could react to something that's happening long after my death, or learn new things. It's just that is science fiction, obviously, but it's a very strange thought. Usually the things I see in movies like Marjorie Prime or otherwise, it's like you meet a dead person and they're kind of locked in place. They're very limited to what they were when they were recorded, in inverted commas. But that is strange to think that I could continue to learn, or someone could continue to learn after their death. But the virtual immortality space, I think, is both in sci-fi representations and in reality now with several cool companies. Like, that's a really, really cool application. I don't know if you guys, I think Lucas, you may have seen some, or I think you guys have seen a couple.
It is not my area, but it is super interesting.
And I think I saw one like in a pitch a while ago where you're in a, you know, it's sort of Elysian fields, and instead of going to like a gravestone, you walk in this virtual world to an area that could be like a tree or something, and the recordings are held there. Is that one of the ones that you have encountered? But I don't know anyone that's actually, you know, used it as a consumer, or any of them. I'd be interested.
I mean, at what point do you start calling that brain uploading?
For the deceased or the living? For the deceased person?
Yeah, at what point does this, like, where do you draw the line between this is an archived copy of me that can keep learning, and this is actually a copy of, like, this is me being uploaded to the internet in some capacity? We are obviously not remotely there yet, but
Yeah.
I'm curious when they would start describing that as
Yeah.
a copy versus a version of themselves.
I think that is like one of the major philosophical questions about what it is to be human. I mean, one book that I love, I don't know if any of you have read Neil Stephenson's book, Fall, his latest one.
I did,
yeah. The depiction of one of the main characters who's this like billionaire creator of a game that everyone plays, and then he legally has his brain signed up to be, I guess, transferred as data and uploaded, and then some of the chapters are from his perspective as like the pixels and his brain comes together. I found that very like odd. When you read it in long form over several chapters, you start to get a sense of what it might be like to be an AI, like waking up. But he's not quite sure if he's the same. I can't remember what happens at the end. Do you?
They go on a very long video game side quest.
Right. But I think in conclusion, it's like probably not the same person, same brain, consciousness. But yeah, I mean, I think about my grandmother. Would I want to be able to talk to her if there was something? It's like it's just a spectrum, right? On one end of the spectrum, you watch videos. Like I would play back videos of us or photos of us, and the next step is like making it more interactive. In a way. And
I mean, to me, Cyan today here with AI Foundation just sounds exactly like Cyan, and Bizstone sounds exactly like Bizstone. And it feels really close to me. And all of that can be digital Deepak can be programmed on all of Deepak's writing. So there's almost, just a huge amount that, especially with celebrities that's out there that would give you the sense that person is still there, but that's not quite as much people's personal lives and things like that would need to be trained. But it makes me think about this amazing TV show called Years and Years, which I'd strongly recommend. And there's a scene from, let's say, like 15 years in the future where two parents are very worried about their daughter because she seems to be acting up in some way, and they look on her search history and find references to trans, and so they sit her down and say, we're really supportive of this. Like, we don't want you don't need to not talk to us about this. Like, and she's like, yeah, I am kind of really thinking about this seriously. And they say, we support you if you want to change your gender. That's great. And she says, no, what are you talking about, gender? Like, I'm transhuman. I want to go to Switzerland, and there's this clinic where they'll upload me and they'll execute me and kill my body so that I can be in the cloud. That's what I want. And it was pretty much the only time that I was able to see an example of something that my child or my grandchild might say to me, and I'd be like, there is no way that is happening. Like, I'm totally opposed to this. I am not cool or hip. Like, you can't do that. But it seems like that is not unrealistic that someone would want to try it within the next kind of 70 years. Like a very young person wouldn't be attracted to that concept and feel like that's totally cool, which is very disturbing. But I think we're seeing the glimmers of it with Hereafter or with AI Foundation today at the summit. They are starting with, I guess it is in a way, brain upload, the beginning, very, 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 very early beginnings of.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see that conversation with Cyan. It sounds amazing. So yeah, and I guess we should probably wrap here. This is an incredible discussion. I feel like we could keep talking for ages on any of these things. But maybe we can have a little stretch our legs and share any last thoughts. No rules, free for all. We could do what's that game where the last person sits down loses their seat?
That I'm really bad at sitting down.
It's difficult. You got to like line it up just right.
I can't even get indoors.
Yeah, I mean, not gonna lie, I've spent a lot of time Animal Crossing during lockdown, but I find it very peaceful compared to Fortnite and other things. But yeah, so is there anyone want to share like one thing they're excited to see in the next, I guess, next year or two in any of these areas that cross over? If there's one thing that you are looking forward to or tracking, what is it?
I mentioned this a bit ago, but AI Dungeon, I think, is a really interesting example of creative AI being a collaborative tool instead of something that you think of as either an independent artist or as like a creation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly not the only thing of its kind, but it's a really fun, cool example of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it progress.
Cool. I will check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've been having conversations with some serial VR founders who I guess have kind of maybe gotten a little bit downtrodden on the platform and are kind of more curious about taking some of their learnings that they have in interface and experience design for VR and kind of bringing it to mobile. So I guess I'll be kind of curious to see what influences from VR paradigms like come to mobile design, and I feel like that probably will avail itself in the next year and a half or so.
And I hope in the next 2 years to see Michaela acting in a movie. So taking a role like Michaela as whatever, Jessica or something. I think that would be pretty, I don't know how I would digest that mentally, but it feels like it feels inevitable and really exciting.
Yeah, well, ... no comment. There is exciting news coming from the Michaela front. In fact, I think she has a new music video out on Friday. So go check her out on Spotify and YouTube. An unbiased investor. Cool. Well, thank you all of you for coming. I really enjoyed this chat. I'm going to express some more delight and look forward to continuing to read all your stuff and Edward seeing what happens with Lucy.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.